Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Please be seated. And we trust that while you've waited for the meeting to begin, you've taken a moment to read our recognition and respect to the First Nations. Our corporate officer today is away sick, but I understand he might be tuned in and listening because he's superhuman. And is that true? Pascal, are you with us?
Yes, Mayor Sager, I am here.
Oh, there you. We do hope that you recover quickly, and thanks so much for tuning in. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Cassidy.
It is recommended that the February 12, 2024 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Seconding a question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. I'll ask for an adoption of the minutes. Councillor Finlay.
Yes, I recommend the adoption of council minutes as written.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Snyder.
Can I say just as written?
Yes, you can. Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Watt. Discussion, question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. We have a proposed development permit. Mr. Bailey, are you introducing that, or Ms. McGuire? Thank you.
Just have a short presentation here. So good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. For consideration tonight is a proposed coach house development permit for 1160 Sinclair Street. On the screen there you can see a rendering image of the revised coach house permit application. Here you can see the site outlined in purple on the aerial image on the right hand side of the screen there. It's approximately 9,100 square feet in size. It's currently zoned RS5. Within the Hollyburn neighborhood, and the site currently has a one-story house on it. It is surrounded by single-family houses in the immediate area and driveway access from Sinclair Street. Council will recall that the application was reviewed and considered by Council in September of last year. At that time, what was proposed was a two-story coach house on the northeast corner of the site. Since that time, Council deferred consideration of the application to refer it back to the applicant to allow time to consider neighborhood comments and provide revisions. And this just provides an overview of the process for review of the application. So since the application was initially submitted, staff conducted technical and planning review, and following from that, we did a notification, which is required by the Development Procedures Bylaw, to 50 meters around the subject site, and gave 2 weeks for people to provide comments. Following that, there were a number of concerns raised and a petition that was submitted to staff with concerns about the proposal at that time. The applicant requested to proceed to council consideration last year, and as I said, September 18th last year, council did consider the application, and we did hear from a couple of immediate neighbors, and at the time, council deferred the decision to allow for the applicant time to address neighborhood comments. So that's why we're here tonight, and the applicant has revised the application to respond to neighborhood concerns. We did review the revised application against all required regulations. That includes the RS5 zoning and coach house regulations, and it does comply with those. We also reviewed the project against the relevant coach house design guidelines, as well as the wildfire hazard guidelines, because the site's within the wildfire hazard development permit area, and it does comply with all of the relevant guidelines for those. So specifically in response to the neighborhood concerns that were received, there were environmental concerns about tree removal and impact on adjacent trees, and in response to those, the applicant shifted the building footprint south to mitigate potential impacts on the site to the north. As well, what that did is it allowed for planting to be planted along the northern edge to provide a buffer and screening to the northern neighbor, as well as revising the application allowed for one additional tree to be retained. And then in terms of the concerns regarding the design, height, and scale of the coach house, the applicant made a significant change to reduce the height of the coach house from a two-story coach house to a one-story plus basement coach house, which also allowed for there to be a reduction in the actual height of the building from approximately 20 feet down to 13 feet. As well, at the time of the original application, there were zoning variances that were proposed. There was two. One that was a zoning variance for separation distance between the house and the coach house, as well as a variance to the rear yard setback. With the revisions to the application, the applicant was able to eliminate those variances. And then finally, there were concerns about parking, congestion, and access. And just as a reminder, the applicant is providing an additional parking spot, and that does exceed the minimum requirements for this site. There would only be the requirement for one parking stall, so they are proposing an additional parking stall to both respond to community comments, but also for the need for the site itself. As well, they clarified with updated landscape plan, the pedestrian pathway and signage that goes along the northern edge of the site to access the coach house, which is in alignment with the coach house guidelines. So to conclude, we are recommending that council approve the development permit as the project does comply with all relevant regulations and guidelines. As well, more generally, because the applicant has worked to make revisions that in staff's opinion do respond to the neighborhood concerns that have been raised. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
As this is a one-story coach house, Mr. Bailey, don't you have the authorities to simply approve it?
Through the mayor, we did contemplate approving it at the staff level. When we went back to the motion from the previous council consideration, council actually deferred consideration of the item.
Oh, I see.
So we thought it appropriate that it come back to council. To be clear, I would approve this. I think it's pretty straightforward approval, but we think it's appropriate that council approve it.
I understand. Okay, unless any member of council wishes, I don't think we need to hear from the applicant. We'll simply ask if there is anyone here this evening that wishes to address council on this application. Hearing none, Councillor Lambert.
I just had a couple of simple questions.
Yes, if you want to speak, sir, this is your opportunity.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for the changes.
Could I ask you, sir, we need you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Rostam Aydin, I'm the adjacent north side neighbor.
Yes.
And I actually spoke in the last one too, and I just want to first of all thank the applicant. And secondly, I wanted to ask, you mentioned the tree hedge on the north side, so that's part of the plan now?
Yes.
Have the trees?
Yes.
Okay. And in regards to the path, the pedestrian pathway, is it a possibility to have it on the south side, or is the north side firm at this point?
We did review what the applicant had proposed, and it does meet the guidelines, and it is aligned with where the coach house is primarily located, so it does provide more convenient access in that location.
Like I asked because the last time it was brought up, I think by one of you guys, that it could be an option to move it to the south too if they were going to change their plans. But if not, then
I think at the time it was more the direction, I believe, from the council discussion was to relocate the coach house further to the south to mitigate impacts toward the north as far as adjacency.
I see. Okay. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very nice, sir, that you recognize that the applicant here really has gone to some considerable lengths. Councillor Lambert.
I recommend that all written and oral submissions regarding proposed development permit 22143 for 1160 Sinclair Street up to and including the council meeting held on February 12th, 2024 be received for information.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll say.
Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Councillor Lambert.
And further recommend that proposed development permit 22143 for 1160 Sinclair Street as described in the report dated January 17th, 2024 from the planning technician be approved.
So second?
Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thanks very much. And now on to an item that is of incredible significance. Thanks, Ms. McGuire and Mr. Bailey. And thanks to the applicant for really quite extraordinary consideration of the neighbors. Thank you. Well, the next item is something that really should have a packed chamber, and it is one of the most significant things. Very, very happy with this recommendation, Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. I mean, in our community, it's often said that there are only two things that matter. It's dogs and trees, and I think the bulk of our agenda today revolves at dogs and trees. So this one has to do with trees. Now, I'll read out the recommendation. It's rather long, but here goes. So recommended, whereas the District of West Vancouver is endowed with abundant undeveloped forested areas that are a defining feature of our community landscape, and whereas these lands, also referred to as the upper lands, are considered a natural asset providing a multitude of ecosystem services to our community and form part of the district natural asset inventory. And whereas the official community plan designates the lands above the 1,200-foot contour for limited use and recreation, and whereas these lands contribute significantly to the canopy cover target in the district's urban forest management plan, and whereas protection of our natural assets will ensure security and continuity of critical ecosystem services, and whereas a substantial portion of the undeveloped forest lands above the 1,200-foot contour is owned by the District of West Vancouver and not yet dedicated as park, therefore be it resolved that 1. Council endorse the proposal to protect district-owned property in the upper lands above the 1,200-foot contour that is not yet dedicated as park. This is approximately 2,500 acres. 2, Council direct staff to conduct a legal search to confirm land parcels under district ownership above the 1,200-foot contour and to confirm park dedication status and zoning of district-owned land parcels above the 1,200-foot contour, and that Council direct staff to report back on a park dedication bylaw for adoption by Council in 90 days.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Thompson.
So done.
Well, I think this is a real statement to the other communities around Metro Vancouver. If you think about this beautiful region, you think of Stanley Park, you think of the Pacific Spirit Park out by UBC, and you think of the backdrop in West Vancouver. And to protect this land, or to take every step we can to protect it in perpetuity, I think is an incredibly wise decision. Councillor Gambioli.
So I just had a couple questions and a little suggestion for an amendment to the motion. So, you know, we did something similar to this 10 years ago for the White Lake Park Reserve. And I think what I didn't realize at the time was that when we turn it into a park, or when we call it a park, there's an expectation then by the public that we're going to add something. We're going to create parking, we're going to upkeep the trails, we're going to rebuild new bridges, and all of a sudden there were more and more people. And then we have to start deciding on the dog bylaw and if it's on leash or off leash, et cetera, et cetera. And so as a result, White Lake Park has become much more busy and full of people and dogs and issues than it ever was before. So my question with this is that, you know, according to the whereases, we look at the undeveloped forested areas. It talks about the natural assets, the ecosystem, the canopy cover, the protection of natural assets, but then it talks about limited use and recreation. So I guess my question is, I'd like to know what our intent, and I think staff we should probably know what the intent is. Is the intent to just call it a park? And if we want to do that, then I would actually think it might be a better idea to call it a reserve than a park. There's expectations that go along with a park, that we're going to maintain it and we're going to add resources to it. So I just think that we should think about that. And yeah, so I just wonder, first of all, if there's any feedback on that from the people who created the motion or from staff.
Councillor Lambert, and I would just say that Andy Day, the son of former Councillor Rod Day, who's obviously had great influence in our community, was very instrumental in creating a park reserve around the Golden Gate Bridge in California. And I think his involvement in thoughts and guidance as we bring this forward for formal adoption would be very useful. And of course, if council decides to pass the Cypress Village, that will also add significant land as park. So there is I take your point. Setting up how this will be managed, what role Metro Vancouver may have, are all worthy discussions. But I think the main point is that we're sending a message out to everybody that we're contributing to the livability of Metro Vancouver. Councillor Lambert?
Yeah, and Councillor Gambioli, this was discussed extensively with staff, and that very question about park and what does parkland mean. And the primary thrust of this is the protection and preservation of this as a natural reserve. And as it turns out, it does, the protected areas, the new protected areas, contain one of the largest remaining areas of old-growth forest on the North Shore. And although we haven't specifically at this time addressed the conservation of that area in the same manner that the Old-Growth Conservancy has been identified, that would be a subsequent step after staff brought back the bylaw for the park dedication.
So you would have a reserve within the park?
That's a possibility.
Does staff have any comment on this? I didn't know that staff had been involved in the discussion, so I'm just curious to know, staff have a lot of background on this issue.
But of course, just to appreciate that staff will come back within 90 days with a full report.
Oh,
So,
sure.
Ms. Kettler, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Through the Mayor to Councillor Gambioli, so both Mr. Bailey and myself did meet with Councillor Lambert and Councillor Thompson. Okay. And I think our discussion was that initially having this dedicated as park would be the first step, and then how that might be managed and what that might look like would obviously, require further discussion. There may be consultation with the community to find out what their expectations would be, and then financially, how all that would be managed. So there's sort of many steps to come forward after the initial dedication of parkland.
Okay, so we would do a dedication and then discuss it all.
Correct.
Okay, so I would just like to suggest a friendly amendment, number 3 on the page A4. Council directs staff, because what it says is council directs staff to report back on a park dedication bylaw. But I'm not clear whether that means that you're going to report back on all the implications of dedicating it as a park, as I said before, or I'm not sure what that means. So I would add on a park dedication bylaw and the implications for adoption by council.
Yeah, Councillor Gambioli, the intent there was for staff to come back with the actual written bylaw for approval.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying I think there's a lot more than just a park dedication bylaw required. I'd like to know a lot more about the implications of, the comparable situation with White Lake Park, and how that, in the past 10 years has happened. That we called that a park, and there's been a lot more information and resources utilized than I expected anyway. I didn't have that information, and I think that wasn't at all part of our thinking when we passed it. It certainly wasn't mine. So I don't know. I'd like to see more than just a park dedication bylaw.
Well, I think
I'd like to see a
that
report.
could come in a subsequent phase. So this first step is meant to keep it simple and to actually enact the dedication bylaw, and then we can move forward from there.
But do we normally enact bylaws with no reports and information from
Yes.
staff? Really?
It's been done before.
Oh. on such a big topic?
On parks before, yes.
Okay, so it's not a friendly amendment then to add the word "and implications"?
And no.
Okay.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, first of all, I'm very pleased and proud to be seconding Councillor Lambert on this. It's, with all the development we have in the queue to above the highway and with provincial mandates, I think it's really important that we pursue the preservation reserve of these parks. And I would like to point out the difference between White Lake and this particular parcel, that White Lake was an existing trail route with an established parking lot. And it would be interesting to reflect, as someone who's used the trail regularly, to understand what sort of investment was made after it was actually made in a formal park dedication, because there was a tremendous amount of infrastructure there to begin with. I don't know of any infrastructure other than the cabins and the routes used to get access those cabins there. And I look forward to hearing that report where we can debate all the forward thinking, and yes, of course, consulting Andy Day would be welcomed. And I'm very pleased about this.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Councillor Cassidy.
Well, I'd just like to say that Councillor Gambioli does bring up some excellent points, and I am very much in favour of the dedication, but I just want to sort of be assured that we're not taking on another asset, that X number of years down the road we're now building trails and steps and so forth, that it does stay actually in its natural setting and in its natural state. So I do agree with her point. Thank you.
I don't think anyone disagrees with that. It is just the timing and sequencing. And I think if we send the clear message out that we want to preserve this property and set that, how it is managed will be a sensible subsequent work. Okay.
I'd also like to point out that Metro and Parks BC are trying to initiate the mottos of conserve and protecting, and I think it's just great when we're joining all these levels of government together with the same intention of protecting and preserving all these wonderful lands we do have that are facing all the pressures of development and access.
And I've got to just also comment, it was 30 years ago that I was sitting in this chair as we dedicated the old growth reserve, and I think that was an incredibly wise decision back then, and this just seems like a natural addition to that. Councillor Cassidy?
So I ran in 2014 on the preservation of the upper lands above the 1,200 foot level, and so I am perfectly happy to agree with this, given the proviso that we look to how it's actually going to be preserved. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary? The motion carries unanimously. Thanks very much. A great first step. Item number 6, the amendment to the animal control and licensing. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you very much. Well, as Councillor Watt and I brought this forward the last time, we did say that it was not going to be an absolute, that we would see if there needed refinement as we moved along through the calendar of the year. And here we are. We're going to be refining. So I would like to recommend that whereas the District of West Vancouver's Animal Control and Licensing Bylaw, number 4545, 2008 outlines dog licensing and regulations, dangerous animals, prohibited areas, and off-leash areas. And whereas it is critical to stipulate that dogs must be on the immediate care and control of a responsible person on a leash on an accessible birdsong trail in Lighthouse Park. And whereas it is critical to stipulate that dogs must be under the immediate care and control of a responsible person on a leash no greater than 2 meters in length along the Centennial Seawall and the Ambleside Seawall, therefore it be resolved that Council directs staff to amend the District of West Vancouver's Animal Control and License Bylaw, number 4545, 2008, to remove Birdsong Path in Lighthouse Park from Schedule B off-leash areas. 2, direct staff to amend the District of West Vancouver Animal Control and License Bylaw number 4545-2008, Section 4, to stipulate that dogs must be under the immediate care and control of a responsible person on a leash no greater than 2 meters in length on the Centennial Seawall, the Ambleside Seawall, and the Birdsong Path in Lighthouse Park. And number 3, that items 1 and 2 will not encompass any community consultation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Watt, is there any discussion? Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Snyder.
Yeah, just one question. I know on the seawall, while we've allowed dogs and now on leash, that we allow up to 3 dogs per person, but we do not allow dog walkers. Is the same provision applied to Birdsong Trail?
Thank you. To our manager of bylaws.
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, Schedule C in our animal control and license bylaw explicitly outlines the permitted areas for commercial dog walkers in the district. Both Lighthouse Park and the Seawalks are prohibited and not included in the schedule.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Snyder.
Yes, that was one of my questions. The other question is it, the bylaw says that you're allowed up to 3 dogs, an individual owner, is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, yes, that is correct.
Okay, so and I just put it out there to the proposers of this, that whether or not you would consider a friendly amendment to also restrict the number of dogs, particularly on Centennial Walkway, to 2 dogs per person, as opposed to 3 dogs, which is currently permitted.
Thank you.
Councillor Snyder, Councillor Watt and I have discussed that, and we are in agreement. We just wondered the logistics of doing it this evening or bringing it back for another council time, giving staff some time to put together the wording.
I think, Councillor Cassidy, that's a pretty straightforward, friendly amendment. I don't think we need to. Mr. Manager?
Mayor Sager, it would be something that would just need a bit more review in terms of explicitly stating certain areas and limiting them to 2 as opposed to other areas. It would just likely involve a bit more amendment to our bylaws and a subsequent section, but it is something that we could definitely review and look to put in place if council so directs.
I'd be happy with that.
Thank you.
This evening or at a later date? You'd like a later date, obviously, as I understand.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, through to Councillor Cassidy, I think what our bylaw officer is saying is that it can happen. It will take a bit more work. So if you want it to happen this evening through a friendly amendment, it may take a few extra weeks to come back with the amended bylaw.
All right, thank you.
That's probably the most efficient way to do it all tonight, as opposed to us coming back again.
Yeah, I think it's more efficient to if it's agreeable to the mover and seconder, I would incorporate it into the motion this evening as a friendly amendment.
All right, then that's what we will do.
Councillor Watt, are you in agreement with that?
Yes, I am. We've already been discussing this today, just the best way to go forward with it. So we're fully prepared.
Okay, so the motion that is now before you as amended. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. And item number 7, proposed development procedure bylaw, Councillor Snyder.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the proposed development procedure bylaw number 4940, 2017, amendment bylaw number 5271, 2024 be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried.
And
Councillor,
recommend that the proposed sign bylaw number 4499, 2007, amendment bylaw number 5295, 2024 be adopted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question. All in favor? Contrary carried. There's no new business this evening. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda? This Councillor Gambioli.
I will recommend that the consent agenda item as follows be approved. Item 9.1 regarding delegation request.
Thank you. Councillor Watt? Thank you. Any discussion? Question. All in favor? Contrary carried. And then there's no notices of motion. Any reports from Mayor and Council? Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind reporting on something a number of us intended, including the mayor, and that was the deconstruction of the Jimmy Pattison House. And it was actually a very insightful and remarkable experience. We were invited on site by the company that was deconstructing it under their sustainability motto. And for a home that we looked at moving and it couldn't be moved and considered nothing more than demolishable, it actually proved to be a highly valuable product, where hidden within the walls and the floors were these incredible pieces of lumber that were actually old growth for fine grain. And the way they decommissioned this was to pile everything into categories. And the way this company works is they work closely with Homes of Humanity and have a site where they sort all the materials, they sell the materials that are salvageable. And there was one, I can't remember the number, but there was one 2x6, a true 2x6, that was about 20 feet long. And what was the value on that? $3,000 for one piece of wood alone. It was just remarkable to look at. And even the blocks of concrete, they were looking at how to repurpose those. So it was really insightful, and it's something that our staff are working towards putting into our processes, that when people want to take down homes, that they first look at perhaps repositioning them, and if that can't be done, decommissioning them in this way. And the bottom line is the deconstruction of this home, done this way, actually saved 25,000 pounds of waste going into landfill. So really enjoyable. And it, that's all.
No, it was excellent.
It was fun.
Absolutely excellent to save that waste. Yes, well, many of us, I think almost all of us, attended on Sunday to, why don't you share your experience, Councillor Watt?
Yeah. So on Sunday, several members of council, Councillor Lambert and Mayor Sager and I were at the Lunar New Year, and we seemed to miss other councillors, Gambioli and Cassidy, who were there, I believe, overlapping us. But this is the year of the rabbit, which means...
No, it's the year of the dragon.
Dragon, Jesus!
Oh!
Woo, I didn't even say that. Why?
7 years of
Oh, God.
bad luck.
It is 7 years of bad luck, but I'm reading from our site.
No,
Okay.
it's definitely the year of the
It must have
dragon.
been yes, it is Year of the Dragon. How mortifying. This goes as my singular most embarrassing moment. But anyway, it was fabulous, and extremely well attended. I'll let Councillor Lambert continue.
Well, we all had our portraits painted by a very talented Chinese calligrapher artist in the tea room. That was one of the many venues at the community center. And I'd be hard pressed to guess how many people attended, but the atrium was full. There were hundreds of people there. And terrific photo ops with the dragons and with all of our hosts. It was a memorable event.
It really was. And what was great was just the incredible diversity of people, ages, cultures, all coming together in good spirits. Councillor Gambioli.
I'll just add that at the event, the organizer told me that was at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, that they had already given away all the little red envelopes that they had prepared, and they had prepared 3,000 of the little red envelopes for children. And they had already given them all away. So I don't know what the total attendance was, but it was a lot.
Yes, they asked me to hand out envelopes, and I started at 10:30 and went solid for an hour and a half handing out envelopes. It was quite something. Well, thanks for that. I'll have a motion from Councillor Thompson to receive the reports,
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Watt. Question, oh, sorry.
Glad that that was a very unusual looking rabbit jumping around that I saw.
All those in favor? Contrary carried. Are there any members of the public that have any questions this evening or comments? Hearing none, I'll have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Lambert and seconded by Councillor Cassidy. I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary carried. And to our corporate officer, go to bed, get better quick. We look forward to seeing you back here. And Theo, thanks for joining us this evening. The meeting is closed.